these quick, digestible. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sprout Sessions. We hope you've been enjoying these quick, digestible presentations so far and that you've learned a thing or two to apply to your own social media strategies. Whether it be about using chatbots, effective storytelling, or how to manage social at live events, we hope you found something that would be really helpful to bring back to your own organization. Just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items before we kick it off here with Allison and Monica from Zendesk. These sessions will be recorded and they'll be live on our YouTube page, so you can access the recording anytime after the presentation. We'd also love if you shared on social media. You can tweet us at Sprout Social, as most of you probably know, or using the hashtag Sprout Sessions to ask questions. Be sure to use the chat panel at the right of your screen too to ask the presenters any questions anytime throughout the conversation. This session itself is only about 20 minutes long, but be sure to stick around because the presenters will be available for you to ask any questions that you may have about what they cover here. So now let's get started. I'm going to pass it over to Monica Norton and Alison Massie from Zendesk to introduce themselves and get this started.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. We're really excited to be here today. So I'm Monica Norton. I'm the Senior Director of Content Marketing for Zendesk. And as part of that, I run content, social media for Zendesk and for our editorial brand, which is called Relay by Zendesk. And I will let Allison introduce herself.
Great, thank you. Hi guys, I'm Alison Massie. I'm a Zendesk social media manager. And thank you for tuning in today. Monica and I are excited to share some best practices from our journey with employee advocacy at Zendesk. So let's see, next slide. Thank you. If you're not familiar with Zendesk, in a nutshell, we build software for better customer relationships. And we have about 1,700 employees in offices all over the world, including the US, Europe, Asia, Australia, South America. So that's a lot of people in a lot of places, and it can be hard to ensure a consistent message is hitting the social sphere, if you will, around the same time. So next slide, please. Here is how Zendesk approaches this issue and opportunity. We realize the impact of a prospective customer seeing our content shared or reshared by people they're connected to, and we decided to implement an employee advocacy program. We think it's also a little less creepy than those retargeting ads that follow you everywhere online. So that's a bonus. And you know, virtually every organization has a captive audience, your employees, that are willing and even happy to share content with their networks for free. So let's get into the 5 ways employees can boost your marketing content and why you should want them to. All right, so the first step in is building trust and confidence. And we mean that on both sides with your employees and with their networks. So people can be wary of trusting content from a brand they don't know, but they will trust content recommendations from people in their networks. In fact, social media users are 16 times more likely to read brand posts shared by their friends than they are from a brand itself. So that's pretty powerful stuff. And by encouraging employees to promote your content, you're tapping into that trust that they've already established with their networks to reach a new audience. Now, on the other side of that, enlisting your employees in your social promotion plans also requires trusting them. So rather than banning use of social media at work, we recommend encouraging it. And that's within reason, of course. We don't want people on Facebook all day, but at Zendesk, we have a documented employee social media policy, and we train our employees on it. But if you are still hesitant, you might want to consider an employee advocacy platform, which allows you to kind of pick and choose what employees can share. At Zendesk, for example, we use Bamboo by Sprout Social, and we fill it with content for employees to share if they choose. It's optional. And this way, we can put content in front of them that's on message. It's easy for us to add. It's easy for them to share. So that's what we do. But if you're not quite ready to commit to a paid option, there are a lot of free ways to do this as well. They can be a bit more labor intensive for both parties, but you could put out your own weekly email newsletter and have people opt in and present kind of the pre-written social post that way. Or if your company already uses something like Slack or Yammer, you can share content there for people to push out on their own channels. So you do have some options here. All right, so let's talk about amplifying and unifying your message. I'm sure a lot of the people listening run a company Facebook page, and you are well aware that organic reach has been on the decline. So why not use your employees to help make up for some of those losses? I mean, take a look at some of these stats here. According to this research by MSL Group, employees are connected to 10 times more people than their brand on social and can help boost reach as much as 561%. So who would turn that down? And unless your internal policy forbids it, some employees are going to share your content anyway, and all of those posts will likely be different. Some could be really off-brand. And on the other side, you may have some employees that are on the other end of the spectrum that feel very nervous about what they can and can't share and don't want to do it wrong. So if you have an official program that encourages employees to share and even provides pre-written social posts for them, you can help turn those reluctant sharers into regular ones, and you can also ensure a consistent message is going out. Okay, so some of our most enthusiastic employees are in sales for our advocates, and looking at this slide, you can see why. 72% of sales reps who use social media as part of their sales approach outsell their peers. So we feel like by giving them consistent, high-quality content to share on social media, we're helping make their jobs a little easier, and we're helping to position them as trusted, knowledgeable resources to their audience of customers and prospects, which in turn only helps us. So what you want to watch for with this, though, is turning employees into one-way broadcasters. So you really want people contributing to industry conversations, and this is something that we outline in our social media guidelines. And we ask that employees not only share company content, so we ask them to kind of share industry news or personal things. Make sure you throw in a BuzzFeed article or a food pic here and there and kind of mix it up and sound like a real person. All right, so coming up next, we've got trackable metrics. So I'm going to hand it over to Monica to take over on this slide.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, as the head of the social media and other teams at Zendesk, it is my pleasure to get a lot of questions from our executives about how all the content that we're producing and posting is actually performing and showing the material impact that all of our great work is having on the business. So, it's really difficult for me to be able to get justification for investing any budget or even just some of my team's time in a program if it's not proving its worth. So trackable metrics are really important. And fortunately, we are able to track a few important metrics around our employee advocacy program to justify the time and money that we're spending in that program. This is no small feat, as everyone in marketing has experienced. It's often a struggle to prove the ROI of something like content or social media. It's especially tough in B2B industries like ours because sales cycles are very long, and social media could be just the first of many interactions, or it could be a point that they interact with along the path to becoming a customer. As a potential buyer. So it's tough sometimes to track it back to that activity. But fortunately, there are some ways you can do this to justify your program, mainly due to the magic of Google Analytics and UTM tracking. Fortunately, it is pretty easy to show that the traffic that our employee advocacy program is generating is actually pretty significant. So by using consistent source and medium codes for all the links in the social content that you provide to your employees and that you're encouraging them to share, you can demonstrate then on the back end right there in GA that the amount of traffic coming back to your site from all that employee sharing is significant enough to warrant the time spent there, and is in fact broadening your audience. So whether you're using something like Bamboo or, as Allison recommended, you're just sending around pre-written posts by email or posting them in Slack, just make sure that behind that bit.ly link that you're including in the content that you've written for them, that you have everything properly tracked UTM code-wise, and that you're keeping an eye on that in the back end in Google Analytics. And I encourage you to do this even if no one's asking you for the numbers right now, because inevitably someone's going to ask, and then you'll have all that historical data to show that you are actually driving your employees sharing. Not only is it not taking them away from their work and you know, having a negative impact on the business. It's actually having positive and demonstrable impact on your traffic and getting people and broadening your audience and getting people back to your website. It's also super interesting to keep an eye on which content is resonating with your employees. So which of the things that you're sending out to them are they actually sharing on their social networks, and who is sharing it? Which employees are actually sharing your content? You may be surprised to find that, you know, Bob in accounting has, you know, 5,000 Twitter followers. Like, who knew? And you can accomplish this manually, of course, just by doing something like building a Twitter list of all your employees. That can be kind of difficult, but you can track everyone that way. Just keep an eye after you send something out and see what people are sharing. Or with something like Bamboo, you have all sorts of reporting on the back end to show you which content is being shared most commonly. And again, who is sharing the most content. And it even shows you which employees have the greatest reach. Again, that's, you know, how you make surprising discoveries about people like Bob in accounting. Okay, so just some examples of what we're seeing in the employee advocacy program metrics that we're tracking. We do track how often the content is being shared to see which content is resonating, you know, most with our team. And that helps us just kind of understand which types of content we should be putting into Bamboo in our case to encourage employees to share. And it's not always the content that we think, frankly. Like some of it is unsurprising, like, you know, big company news, things about office openings or new products that we're having. Employees get excited about that because they've been working on it. And so, of course, they want to share the news with their networks about that. But we also have made some surprising discoveries about things that our employees are really happy to share, such as things like third-party like press coverage of Zendesk, things like interviews with our executives or with our CEO tend to be really popular. Also, like Allison mentioned, some of the kind of industry content is very popular with them. So things like analyst reports about customer service and about technology. So these are the things that we use a lot in our business and in our marketing. And it's also resonating with our employees, I think, because like Allison said, they want to look like they're reading up on the industry and they want to share with their networks their knowledge of the business that they're in. So that was kind of a surprising discovery of ours in Bamboo, that our employees are really happy to share like industry reports and so forth. And in fact, some of the more popular posts do include those industry reports, and they've been shared upwards of 50 times by our employees, generating, you know, tens or even close to hundreds of thousands of impressions throughout their networks. So that ripple effect can be pretty large. Oops, sorry.
Oh, looks like we're missing something.
Oh, we are missing a slide. Well, I'll talk through it anyway. So the fifth tip for your employee advocacy program is increasing revenue. So that's the holy grail in marketing, right? To not only show that you're generating a lot of traffic and that you're getting a lot of impressions and that people are discovering you through social media, but actually tying that back to the bottom line. So there are some great stats around this as well. So Aberdeen Group published a report to show that companies that have an employee advocacy program see a 26% jump in revenue year over year. So imagine wowing your executives with that stat. That's actually showing bottom line impact of your social media program or of your employee advocacy program. So that's really impactful. And if you want to maximize your employee advocacy's programs downstream impact on the business, you of course need to make sure that the content you're asking your employees to share is your money-making content. So that depends, of course, on you knowing which pieces of content are generating business for you. So do that analysis and understand, you know, which pieces of content are driving more leads or are leading to more business and more customers. So once you've identified those, you should consider weaving those into your employee advocacy program. And that's to say, make sure you're not just sharing the new stuff, like the brand new things that have just come out. That's important to share, and employees get excited about that. But you should also make sure you're mixing in your proven evergreen content that is driving a lot of business for your company. So rotate that in. It's okay if it's not all brand spanking new content. Rotate in those big money makers as well. So you just want to make sure that you're making it really easy and interesting for your employees to be motivated to share by including these really effective pieces of content. It needs to be engaging and interesting. It's also really important to give people the freedom and the choice on what to share. It's good to give people options, like maybe write a couple of different tweets or Facebook posts so that they can, pick the one that resonates with them, allow them to edit it and change it if they feel like they need to make it resonate with them. You want to remove as many barriers as possible to sharing, and give them that freedom and choice, because they're frankly not going to share it if it doesn't seem like something that's interesting to them and something that reflects who they are to their networks. It's also important to give them flexibility to choose where they share the content. So, for example, in Bamboo, our platform, we have the option for people to share on Facebook, on Twitter, or on LinkedIn. And surprisingly to us, although in retrospect it shouldn't have been surprising, LinkedIn is the most popular channel. Twitter is our most effective social media channel for Zendesk in general. So we were very surprised to see that more employees are sharing our content on LinkedIn than they are on Twitter. So that was something that we may not have taken into account if we had been sharing, just sending posts around by email or putting them on Slack. We may not have thought to write a LinkedIn post. We may have just been sharing tweets, and that would have been a big miss for us. But in fact, our content is making the rounds on LinkedIn thanks to the fact that our employees are sharing that content on that platform, because that's the one that resonated the most with them. And with that, that was number 5.
All right. So, what do we want you to take away from this presentation? Employees are an invaluable asset for brand content promotion. So, having a structured program like this can help you connect with new audiences in an authentic way, which we feel is really valuable. So we encourage you to consider taking the leap, even if you start small, via some of those free ways we talked about. You can build a program like this for free or at a very low cost, especially when you compare it to things like paid social promotion or influencer product placement and that sort of thing. So we encourage you to dip your toes in it and try it out. We think you'll know when you're having a successful program, when even Bob in accounting is sharing your videos on Twitter. So thank you so much for your time today, and we'll stick around now for a bit to answer some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Monica and Allison. That was really helpful. So first, tell us more about Bob and accounting. I really want to know what his reach is.
Yeah, seriously, that's of course a fictional example, but we were very surprised when we started using Bamboo. Like, I think our assumption was that most of the people who were socially active at Zendesk were fellow marketers like us. And when we spun it up and started rolling it out and started looking at who was sharing, there were people we had never heard of at Zendesk that were in completely different departments. In sales, like Allison said, a lot of people in sales, people in other offices outside the US. And so, it just kind of highlighted the fact that if we had just stuck to like sending a note around to marketing and encouraging them to use social media, we would have missed out on a lot of other folks at Zendesk who were not only excited about the work we're doing and wanting to share it, but they actually had a significant reach in one or more of the social media channels. So while we don't really have a Bob in accounting, we do have lots of, Jameses in sales and folks like that that have reaches that are much larger than we ever anticipated.
Awesome. I think that's so important for organizations of your size to, allow that flexibility too, so that employees can feel free to share on the platforms that they choose, share the type of copy that they want to. So you guys have done a really amazing job at that. So kudos to you. A couple other questions that we received from YouTube chat. First off, I have Annette C. who asked, how do you feel about employees just pushing out information that you are not providing? For example, job openings in specific departments. Do you ever see your employees share out content that you maybe didn't curate for them to specifically share? And how do you approach that, or do you guide them, or what's your protocol for that?
We do, and that's a great point. We do see some job listings that people are sharing and that sort of thing, and it's usually from a pre-written source of its own through JobVite or the website or something. So it's kind of okay with us, but it's a great note for us to take. and realize that they're sharing those other pieces of content that we didn't provide, and kind of take that feedback into consideration for what we want to provide for them. So, it's definitely okay. We don't reprimand people, but it's great to see other things and go, oh, okay, well, people want to share job listings. Maybe we should offer that, or, other types of content they're sharing.
And in that same lane, I actually had a question for you guys. I know that you promote your employees to share content and to have conversations, not just push something that's self-promotional, but do you ever have situations where you have to, kind of guide an employee back to that more conversational kind of social interaction?
I don't think so. Monica, do you think we've had that come up?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like most of our socially active employees, fortunately, are kind of right in line with us, like in our voice and our philosophy and so forth. So that has not been an issue for us.
Yeah, I think that the people that are interested in sharing are pretty socially savvy and pretty on point with following us and seeing how we talk about the company itself. So they kind of stick in line with that. So yeah, it hasn't really been an issue.
I think, like Allison said earlier too, I think that some of the reason is the people who aren't quite as socially savvy, fortunately or unfortunately, what we're seeing from them is that they're not like kind of branching out and trying to do it on their own. They are following the pre-written tweets or LinkedIn posts or Facebook posts that we've put in Bamboo, or that we would have sent them out by email before we had Bamboo. So we're kind of helping them look more socially savvy than they actually are. So I think it's less that people are trying to do things and are doing it wrong versus they probably wouldn't have done it at all before. And so having a program like this enables them to do it and still feel like they look smart.
That's great. I love that you set the example too. I'm sure that employees really look to both of you for like best practices on social too. A question came in from Reese. She asked, or I'm sorry, possibly he, asked if you ever incentivize social sharing by employees to get the program going or just to get more engagement.
So that's a great question, and that's something that we are in the process of looking into. So, one of the challenges you face with a program like this is getting people to opt in and participate. And so we've done a lot of things in some efforts to do that. So one thing we do right off the bat with new hires, when marketing presents to our new hires, we tell them about Bamboo. We tell them our social media policy. We get them excited. It's a great way for them to jump in and learn about the company and start sharing, and then that becomes habit right off the bat for them. So that's one thing we do. We also promote it we join weekly meetings for other teams, such as sales, and kind of tell them about the benefits of sharing on their social channels and that sort of thing. And some other things we're looking into right now do include lunch and learn. So, come have lunch and learn about this, or, swag or prizes to top sharers. So we just enabled a leaderboard in Bamboo so that you can kind of see where you fall in terms of how much you're sharing, kind of give it that competitive edge. So we are looking at, kind of giving some incentives and enticing people to join. So that's a great question.
I love that. I'm definitely a big fan of the leaderboard and anything that you can do to incentivize employees to be more engaged. Another question came in from Soraya. Do you have any guidelines that do you have any guidelines that accompany the content that you want the employees to share? Do you put like specific copy for them, or like, I know that you guys said that you use Bamboo in order to give some suggested copy, but how strict do you get with that specifically?
I don't know if you want to take this, Monica. I can speak to it a little bit too.
Yeah, I guess we both can. We do include, Bamboo allows you to add in one or more, suggested posts per channel. So we do definitely fill those out. We also include, on the back end, something that doesn't go out on the social networks, but gives people some context around what it is. So we'll kind of explain, hey, this is a byline article by one of our, employees in Melbourne that appeared in a local publication, or like just any necessary context or background information about that post that might help them or further encourage them to share it.
And they are, people are able to edit them in Bamboo. Yes. So, that is a feature, and we do allow it, and it hasn't been an issue. Most people kind of use the pre-written one as is, but some people add some hashtags or tweak it to sound a little more casual, that sort of thing. So it seems to be, that we have a good balance.
Can you give a few more specific examples of the kinds of content that you ask your employees to share?
Sure.
Leadership or like job openings, but maybe some other specifics?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the bulk of it is obviously branded content. So, blog posts from both Zendesk and Relate, ebooks, and, any big events we have coming up or webinars. So, branded things like that. We also include bylines from our executives or employees. Those usually are of interest to people because, like Monica said, it's, showcasing things about the industry and kind of helping you look smart and be part of the conversation. And then, some, completely unbranded third-party pieces just about the industry. We try to include some of those to keep a good mix going as well. But, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned events, Allison, because if I may, I know you guys have talked about that on previous Sprout sessions and social media around events, but that was another surprising kind of source of popular content that I forgot to mention earlier that our employees love sharing. Like when we have a big conference, we have our Relate Live event coming up in New York. It's kind of our big annual conference for Zendesk. And when we put things like that in Bamboo, it gets shared a ton. So people, our employees are super excited about helping spread the word about big event activity like that that's happening. So that's another thing, to make sure that you definitely include in there, because people will absolutely help, spread the word to their networks about big events like that and help drive registration.
Do you encourage other employees on your team to help you curate content or find that content, or do you work with any maybe like partners, whether it be like through like Zendesk as a business that help you with that kind of content to put into Bamboo for your employees to share?
For the most part, it's just the social media team that curates the content that goes into Bamboo, and we also have our neighborhood foundation, and they, that kind of highlights our CSR efforts. They have their own Twitter handle, and so they kind of put in some things about our efforts there as well. So we have a few people at the company that have access that can add content, but for the most part, it falls under content and the social media team.
We also get a lot of, when we talk about the third-party content, like the non-branded, we get a weekly, the marketing team gets a weekly or a daily, recap from our PR team of coverage of Zendesk in the media, but they also do a great job of like including a general industry roundup of technology and customer service industry news. And so that's also a good source of, like Allison said, of non-branded content, just kind of general industry information that we can add into Bamboo for our employees to share. So again, they can participate in that broader conversation, not about Zendesk, but about the industry and what's happening.
I love that, and I really think that that's key to a sustainable program too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely.
It looks like we have time for just one more question here. So how, which countries, I know that you guys mentioned this in your presentation, but considering the countries that your program spans, how do you account for different languages or maybe different cultures, or how do you adjust content so it's relatable to every different type of employee?
Sure. So, as we see demand for it, we create new teams in Bamboo. So you can kind of separate it out by region. And then, the person, not everyone will see a piece of content that's just for our APAC team. Only people that are in that team will see it. And so we do have, other languages and things going into Bamboo that are not in English, and people can share it as they see fit if they're on that team. So we kind of keep everything separate in that way. And it's also less messy in kind of the feed, so there's not as much for people to sift through. So the Teams feature is a really great way to do that.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like we're running close to time. So thank you so much, Monica and Allison. This was an extremely helpful and valuable presentation. Just a reminder to everyone who's watching and listening, we'll be compiling the major takeaways from the session, and then we'll be sharing that with you afterwards. But you can feel free to continue the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag #SproutSessions. And from all of us at Sprout, have a great summer.